What's up, YouTube? Welcome to my YouTube channel today. As Christians, we are increasingly having to deal with issues that are contentious. Since the pandemic began, Christians have been divided on how to respond to the measures that have been placed upon us by the government. Looming, of course, on the horizon is the possible implementation of vaccine passports. As Christians, should we disobey the government? Well, Nero was emperor when Paul wrote these words in Romans chapter 13, verse 1 and 2. Let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those that exist have been instituted by God. That's a verse that is discussed often today, isn't it? I want to read a portion out of Pastor John MacArthur's commentary, the MacArthur New Testament commentary, because I think it's still applicable for us today, even though it was written in 1994. So listen to it as I read it to you, this little portion. The autocratic, ruthless, and demonic regimes of Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, and Mao Zedong were no exceptions to God's command to be subject to civil authority. The equally ruthless empires of ancient Assyria and Babylon were no exceptions. The Roman Empire, sometimes ruled by Caesars who proclaimed themselves to be gods, was no exception. The apostate and heretical Christian kingdoms of the Middle Ages were no exceptions. Shaman ruled primitive and animistic tribes of South America are no exceptions. There are no exceptions. Romans chapter 13 clearly states that we are to obey the government unless it goes against Scripture. Take note with me of 1 Peter 2 verse 13, which was written to people that were suffering unjustly. Be subject for the Lord's sake to every human institution, whether it be to the emperor as supreme or to governors as sent by him. And Peter goes on to say, be subject also to the unjust, for this is a gracious thing when, mindful of God, one endures sorrows while suffering unjustly. That's verse 18 and 19. Indeed, to this unjust suffering you have been called, because Christ also suffered for you, leaving you an example so that you might follow in his steps. That's verse 21. When someone in authority over us treats us unjustly, the example we are to follow is the example set by Christ, who simply continued entrusting himself to him who judges justly. Verse 23. The only exception to this principle is when the one in authority instructs us to sin. Then we must obey God rather than men. That's found in Acts 5, verse 29. Nebuchadnezzar declared in Daniel 3, verse 28. Nebuchadnezzar declared, "Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and delivered his servants who trusted in him. They violated the king's commands and risked their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their own." Now, John MacArthur does balance this only exception principle, which I mentioned earlier, in his commentary with the following statement in his commentary. And I want to read that out to you as well. We also should be grateful for and, within reason, take advantage of our many legal and effective recourses for changing bad laws and bad governments and for promoting good ones. But that has nothing to do with the Christian's priority of proclaiming the gospel and living a holy life to demonstrate that God is a saving God. There is so much that we are dealing with and that we are going to have to deal with, I'm sure, in the coming days. Whatever position you may hold, I would love to hear your thoughts about this in the comment section below. Thank you for taking the time to listen to some of my thoughts today on this issue. Love you all.